Greetings, Admirals, and welcome to another fantastic Priority One podcast live stream event. I'm Kenna, and I've got here with me Mark and Winters as usual, and then we've also got a very special guest. It's Jaddua Ross. He's from Cryptic Studios, and Jaddua, why don't you say hello and introduce yourself and explain what you do for Cryptic and how you are related to the mission that we're going to play today.
Sure, thanks Kenna. My name is Jaddua Ross. I'm a content designer here at Cryptic Studios, and I was sort of a lead designer, I would say, if I had to make up a term for it, but on this episode. So I kind of did the whole initial overview, and then I focused really on the ground portions. And then we had another designer, Jesse Heineck, who did a lot of the space portions. Okay. And then our lead, Charles Gray, sort of polished everything up. And so this was really a team effort, but in a way I was sort of the point person on the whole project.
Excellent. So your sort of area of expertise is mostly the ground part of this, but you had a hand in the whole thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, today we're just going to play through Midnight, and as we go along, we'll ask you a few questions about things that, in the mission, some things that behind the scenes. But before we do that, I just want to cover off a little housekeeping before we get into it. For anyone who's watching, I'm afraid I can't see the Twitch chat. So if you would like to join in the discussion, please do join us in game. You can do that in the chat window. You can do /channel_join space priority one and pop any questions that you have in there. And of course, if you are not already following us on our social media websites, please do so. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/priority1, and we are also on Twitter at STO Priority One. And of course, you can download our podcast episodes every Monday on priority1podcast.com. After this is finished, we will of course archive this on YouTube, and if you'd like to go and see our YouTube channel, just go in, type in the search box in YouTube, Priority One Podcast. So Winters and Mark, if you guys are ready, we'll go ahead and start the mission. Are you guys queued up and join the mission?
Queued and ready.
Okie dokie.
Ready.
Of course you are. All right, let's begin. Where are we? There we go.
You are cleared for docking.
Okay, I'm not going to read through all of this because I'm assuming pretty much everybody has played the mission through by now. But if there's some important bits, we might read through a little bit of it. So let's see. Okay, we need to check in with some of the other captains about our orders. So what do we need to do? By the way, nice outfits, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Love the battle gear, Kenna.
Thank you very much. Oh, my glowy bits are not glowing very well. I'm disappointed.
Oh, I said I was going to change outfit when I got down here.
There we go.
There we go.
It's a little treat for those of you watching the live stream. Some truly excellent Space Barbie from our very own Mark.
My eyes.
This war cannot be won if we lose Earth.
That is an amazing outfit.
Yeah, thank you. The dance-offs we had with these outfits the other week was
very good.
Amazing.
Okay, let's go for Kapla. Right. Who's next? Captain Sean.
I love how this uniform just kind of glitters.
Glad you're here. We've been fighting
Nice.
non-stop, and it feels like we're barely making a dent. Command says we're preparing for our last chance. I hope they have an ace up their sleeve, because I can't see a way to defeat the Iconians in a straight military battle.
By the way, did you have much to do with the this fleet holding, the research lab design in this?
Yes and no. We knew early on that we were gonna use it, and we used it in several places. It's also in Broken Circle, which I also did.
Right.
So I didn't have that much. This was mostly, the environment was mostly Adam Flores, but obviously I worked with it and gave some feedback about how the space was going to be used and so forth.
Okay, Jaddua, we also have another question from one of our listeners in chat in game. Dukedom asks, will the vest go away from the mission rewards once Midnight is no longer a featured episode?
Was it one of the weekly rewards? Probably it will
not
then.
sure.
I'd have to look and see, because the weekly rewards do go away.
I don't think that was a weekly reward. I think the weekly reward is the space set, the deflector, shield, and engine.
So if it's in the base rewards, then it will stay.
Let's have a look.
Yeah, if you could just pull up the mission, you can
Yeah,
see.
I'm just looking at the mission at the moment. I think because I've already gotten it, it doesn't show. Cause all I can see, because it doesn't show the title in there anymore either. So I think it's one of the base ones.
Right, because you're doing it on replay now because
Yep.
you've already done it.
Yeah.
Maybe I can see if there's a character that hasn't done it, or I'll send a message to someone.
Okay.
We'll get that answer for you.
Okay. Oh, Mark, don't take it off. We enjoyed that.
I'm just thinking what's coming ahead. I don't want to blend in too much.
Oh, I see what you mean. You wouldn't want to
I'm
be
planning
mistaken for an Iconian. Sela might shoot you.
He's trying
Spoilers.
to confuse
Spoilers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ooh, that's all right. Everyone's played it at this point. I
We
hope.
hope.
But the problem is with that pink outfit, you might blend in quite well with the background. It'd be like camouflage. Anyway, enough waffling on. Shall we carry on to the next map?
them. Lead the way.
Let's do it. Am I going the right way?
Yep.
I tell you what, I get confused in this map. Good thing they have those handy arrows on the floor. Whoever came up with that was an absolute genius. Right, let's talk to Cogran.
We have defeated one icon.
It was really fun. I got to do some of the voice direction
Oh,
for
really?
this. Yeah, which is not something I've gotten to do in the past, and that was really a lot of fun, especially getting to work with spoilers, Denise Crosby. Was really just an honor.
That is awesome.
So did you bring all the actors back for this, or is this pre-planned so ahead of time when they were in originally they'd recorded lines?
For the most part, we brought people back for this.
Wow.
But we do try to cluster them, especially for the sort of canon talent like Denise or so forth. We try to kind of cluster it and record 2 or 3 at once, 2 or 3 episodes if we can. It's not always practical, and in this case, this was such a huge, important episode that it got a lot more individual attention than other episodes.
Yeah. So, what's involved in doing the voice direction? So, you will have written some of the dialogue, and you've got kind of an idea of how you want things to play out. So then that just translates to you helping the voice actor get it into a proper audio file. Is that?
Yeah, because it's kind of confusing. I mean, video games are different than other media in that you have kind of a lot of lines, and they may not always be. It might not always be clear what the context is from how you're reading it, because sometimes there's branching paths, or sometimes, for us, we have different factions, so we may have different versions of the same lines, or lines that appear in one version but not in another, and sort of getting those together in a way that makes sense is tricky. So it's really helpful to have a designer in there to just give context, to give like the line before, or we try to capture a lot of that in notes, but there's just no substitute for actually having somebody there. And yeah, there's just a certain amount of like, this is how I imagined this person when I wrote this dialogue kind of sounding, to an extent. But then on top of that, we have, Michael Henry, who's our audio guy, who is amazing, and then we have voice directors sometimes also for people. So we have a lot of people kind of helping out, but it's nice to have a designer in there for context.
Oh, fantastic. Right, we're going to go ahead and begin the briefing now.
Oh, and the vest will still be available.
Ah, excellent.
I got confirmation on that.
Yes.
Nice.
If Earth falls, we have lost this war. We have one move left to us, and it is to move this war to a battlefield of our own design.
We also got a lot of support from the cutscenes from Steve Stacey, our animation lead. He really did some amazing work with these.
Were forced from their homeworld in an attack 200,000 years ago. We will take part in
I love the shadows that come across. It just gives that sense of secret briefing and just sets the scene and sets like the emotional tone for this.
Mm-hmm.
There are no guarantees.
It's
Shadows
really
across
beautiful.
his face. It's really well done.
Let's hold out long enough
Yeah,
for the
it's
ship to pass
really
through a
beautiful.
temporal portal.
And it takes a lot of time to get that, to get those subtle effects, but when it works, it was really amazing. The first time I saw this after Steve was done with this, I was like, whoa, because when I do it, it's rougher and it doesn't have all those cinematic touches.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you come back and see it after not having seen it for a while, and it's got all this stuff in it, it just kind of it blows your mind a little bit. And then when you hear Denise Crosby saying a line that you wrote, that's pretty amazing too. Get a little starstruck sometimes, like I wrote that.
Right, let's beam up and fight some stuff.
You are cleared for departure. Good luck.
I'm really excited for this. I really enjoyed this little bit of space combat because we don't often get to actually do anything. Are there any other battles that we do around ESD?
Surface tension.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
the battle for ESD itself. I think that's the only other time really that we fight around our space dock.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything else where we did.
Cool. Right, I'm gonna go into it. We might have a little. It might be a bit noisy. I've turned the sound down as much as we can, but we'll just go for it, shall we?
Yep.
They've
Pew, pew, pew.
USS Hood.
Leroy Jenkins.
Leroy Jenkins.
I was wondering what one of you pair would say that.
Oh, well, the last time I done one of these streams, it was Cookie. She just went charging in.
Oh, it was hilarious.
And I was like, oh, Cookie, come back.
I'm just gonna run into somebody here. That's okay.
One thing I really enjoyed about this is that I think Jesse really pulled off the sense of just this sort of overwhelming forces, an overwhelming battle.
Oh crap. Sorry. It's good. I haven't died yet. There's a lot of pressure when you're the person who's driving this, can I just say. I'm trying to pay attention to what we're actually doing and also not die.
I'm coming with the heels.
We won't judge you, it's okay. It's hard
No,
to
but someone
multitask.
out there will. No.
Ever.
I really like this battle though, because I actually said this to the guys after played it the first time. I thought it felt like a real battle.
Agreed.
Whereas actual battle is very fluid and like things can change. The objectives were coming quickly. It's all right, we're fighting over here, all right, they're flanking us, now they're over here, and it just had a very real feel about it. I really enjoyed this particular battle.
Thank you. Yeah, I really liked it too, actually. It has that pacing.
Yep.
This was really spot on.
USS Cleveland. They're losing reactor containment. We need
Well,
And the Herald Critter group too is it's pretty fun. The solar portals sometimes can be a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But in general, I mean, they're pretty interesting. You have to kind of shift your tactics a bit with the EMP probes, and it's not just your not just, pew pew. There's some, you have to think about it a little bit, which I enjoy.
And look at all the battleships. I'm scared.
Oh, it's good. I like the fact that as well that you used the side, I don't know what they're called, the little side dialogues, because it makes it, rather than stopping play, you just carry on.
Yeah, that's always a tricky line. We call them mini contexts internally, but it's hard because there's a trade-off, right? On the one hand, mini contexts are great. We use them a lot because it doesn't interrupt that flow. But then also sometimes if there's mission-critical information, we really want to actually have it in the context because we don't want you to miss it while it's going through a battle. So sometimes there's a judgment call about, okay, what information is it okay to provide in a mini context versus what we want the whole pop-up things to come through. So a lot of flavor and stuff we tend to do through the mini contexts are more minor things. But then if there's a larger piece, like, you have to go do this. But I think in this mission, Jesse decided to kind of keep it with the mini context just to keep that pacing and that flow and that sense of a battle happening, rather than sort of the stop and start that you might have in a more directed mission.
Well, do you know who it was that put in Curland here? Because that
God.
was pure genius.
That was absolutely...
I laughed so much when I seen that. I was like, oh, that is just perfect.
He knows, he can hear me from where he is, and he just from based on our side of the conversation, he knew exactly what you were talking about.
Because there was actually one of those sides dialogues I was wanting to ask about. It says about the mass infrastructure moving into Jupiter Station. Was that something that was originally part of the story, or is that something that possibly might hint at something for the future?
Yeah, I might have to double check on that one, but I think it was just, part of the story of sort of, the assault on Earth, the incoming, just to kind of to make it broader than just around Earth. It's the whole system that's being invaded.
I just really piqued my interest going, there's something massive moving in. I want to know what it is.
Or maybe we don't want to know.
Or maybe we don't, that's true.
Oh, okay. I see. So I just, Jesse just filled me in a little bit about that. Earlier on, there was a part about some more shenanigans with Jupiter, that it was going to be turned into a dwarf star by an Iconian attack.
Wow.
So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Yeah, things change during development. I think it's tricky, especially when you have several people working on a piece to make sure everything's coherent. And this definitely, like, a lot was riding on this episode in a lot of ways. I mean, it's sort of 5 years in the making.
Yeah.
Because it ties up so many things, and there's so many tendrils and threads throughout everything that we've been doing for so long. So we really invested more time in refining it, and I think it shows.
Did you feel any pressure internally? Because obviously within the community there was so much anticipation of what was going to happen, and this this big finale. Did you feel that pressure internally, or was this just another mission basically?
No, it was definitely, I felt it. It was. I think when I felt it the most was there. I felt a sense of pressure both from the internally and from the community to make it a really Trek episode. And it's a tricky thing. And maybe we'll talk more about this when we get down to the ground. But to ultimately, you have to hit these plot points, right? These certain things have to happen, but you don't want to railroad the player into them. It can be really frustrating to a person who has this idea of how their character would behave, and then they don't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, sort of the way we kind of led you to believe that it was going to be a genocide. And so that was really tricky, and that took a lot of thought. And I remember, it's funny because normally we don't really, normally kind of the story and that stuff happens with the lead and the designs, but in this case, a bunch of the environment artists actually, it came up for them too, of like, when we do this, can we please make it so that it, it feels Trek, and that we're not railroading people, and the player feels like they have choices.
Yeah.
But it was a real conundrum. I mean, that's a tough thing to manage in a story like this, is how to get the player where you want them to go without feeling like they were just kind of along for the ride.
Wow, there's so much going on right now on the screen. I can barely tell what's going on.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of themes going on.
Well, I think it's
The
great
laser light
though,
show.
especially when you've got a team, because I think it's a little bit more chaotic when you're on a team. But it should feel like this because we're in the middle of a massive battle.
Right, and the way that we do it is we scale it up for a team size in space. So, yeah, if you go in there by yourself, there's not going to be nearly as many ships. But we have to ramp up the difficulty as many people are on the team. So it does end up, you get 5 people in there, and it's like a little overwhelming at first when you're there's so many battleships all clumped together.
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
Ships are regrouping.
Run away.
We should use this respite to our advantage.
Arriving with the time
Form up at the KIS. Our situation is stable.
Okay, let's protect this time ship. Oh my god. By the way, shout out to my former fleet mates of the 12th, who helped me build the computer that can handle this, because right now, this is a bit crazy. This time last year, I basically bought a new computer pretty much just to play Star Trek Online, and I'm really glad that I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's dedication.
Yeah, that is dedication. We, it's a tricky line to walk. We want our performance to be acceptable. So it's a fine line sometimes, and we do tricky things to try to make it perform okay, but still feel like a massive battle.
Yeah.
Like the cards in the distance, for example, of the other Iconian ships and so forth.
Right.
So you can see them, but they're not actually shooting stuff.
Okay, I might die right now. I just got suckered in between about 6 solar gateways. Ah!
Oh.
And I'm out!
Oh, the USS Enterprise model in the game has actually done saucer separation. I love it.
Has it?
Yeah, on my screen it has.
Oh.
Yeah, it definitely has that power.
Ah, I died it.
Oh no!
That's it.
I'm the one that hasn't yet. Yeah.
Did I mention that the heralds are tough?
Yeah.
They most certainly are.
Alright, let's get into this time portal before we get completely creamed.
Run for the portal!
Energizing temporal emitters. The time portal is open and stable.
Can we talk for a minute about Noise Beard? Which has been, a surprisingly, don't know what the word is, a lot of talking points about Noise Beard.
Really?
Well, I think, in the last episode, it was kind of one of those subtle things, but it was like, oh, his beard's changed, when, because you've changed the past, and you've come back to the future. It's sort of the visual
right.
signal that things are not as they were before.
It's the mirror universe goatee.
Exactly.
I love that image of just all the ships flying together and there's not to meet reply. I was like sitting biting my nails.
And die.
I don't want to go away from the other part. I want to see what happens next.
600.
I do get chills, like I've seen it so many times and I still get little chills when they say that.
Mm.
Evaluating astrometrics. Confirmed. We have traveled back approximately 200,000 years. Only our two ships made it through.
There are no signs of Captain Cogran or his ship. We will have to continue the mission without him.
Okay, so this is a good opportunity before we go too much into Iconia and have a look at it. Can we talk a little bit about the playtesting process, because I sort of touched on this a little bit with Kate Banks in the last live stream we did, but I would like to know more about how the playtesting process works. Like, when do you start playtesting a mission like this, and what does it look like at first, and how does it progress?
Okay, sure. So it varies a little bit, but generally the way it works is, and the way it worked in this mission, is that we start with what's called a white box. So that is just literally, planes with no textures, that are just sort of a play space holder, so we can run around in the environment and we can feel how it feels. And then usually there's just sort of the leads and the designer, and we kind of just sit down and walk through it. It's not like a really formal play test or anything.
And is there is there an actual structure of a mission at that point?
Yes and no. I should go back a step, which is we have a step before all of this, which is that the leads kind of give us, we call it a pre-pitch. They kind of give us what story points that they want us to hit, and any special things they want and stuff like that. And we kind of take it and we develop it into a full pitch, and then we pitch it back to them and they approve it. So in a sense, the mission is already kind of roughed out on paper. But then for the white box, our current process is that it's just the spaces. There really isn't any mission logic at that point attached to it. It's just running around, and we'll have white boxes for the various things that you click on. We might have some placeholder encounters, but it might not even be the right critter group or the right level or anything like that. It's literally just like, there's some fighting here. There's some fighting here. And then that also helps the environment artist, who's the other person in our pod, know what spaces that I'm gonna need for gameplay. And then we can kind of, at that point, once the white box is done, we can kind of split off, and they can be working on the geometry of the world and the props, while I'm working on the gameplay and the encounters and the dialogue and stuff like that. So then we have, the first time it really gets play tested, we call it a first playable, and so that's usually a few days after, varying, but a few days after the white box, and then that's the first chance for the leads to really play through it and see how it feels. And usually during the development part of the process, at the beginning anyway, for a featured episode, I have to give all these caveats because things are different for queues and other things like that. But for a featured episode, the early part of the development, it's mostly the leads playtesting it and producers playtesting it and giving you feedback. And then towards the end of the development process, we have a handoff to our QA department, who then does more thorough kind of trying to break it testing, or edge case kind of testing, like like in teams and different, somebody leaves and somebody comes back and all that kind of stuff, like trying to really find the holes. And then that goes on for a long time. And it's especially, and then we also will have often team play tests, especially on something like this, because and so that's the whole department, like on a Friday or whatever, we take an hour and we all just play the mission and give feedback. That's really important on a featured episode like this, because we don't typically put them on our triple test servers, because we don't want to spoil the story. So we have to really make sure that we internally, we can't rely on the players. So we have to, we have to do extra due diligence to make sure that the quality is really high.
Yeah, cool. And can anybody just join in and say, "Oh, I want to try it. I want to play test it"?
You mean like inside the company?
Yeah. Inside the company.
Theoretically, it's available. It's out there. I mean, once, people could pull it down and play it. Typically, they don't. We're usually pretty busy.
Yeah.
But definitely people can, and people do.
Yeah.
Usually if they're working on it,
Yeah.
they'll just play it. But so theoretically anybody could, but usually they don't.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Right, let's talk to this guy, and
Perfect.
Taren.
This will give us a moment to get our bearings and figure out how best.
So while we're sort of just sort of playing this little piece of it, could you tell us more about
Remember why we are
hang
here.
on.
Every Iconian. I recommend we begin by.
Sorry, I just fast forwarded through all of Denise Crosby's voiceover. I kind of feel guilty about that because it's fantastic. Can you just tell us about the design of Iconia? Because actually, I'm just going to stop here at the. Yeah, I know. Wow. So I'm just going to stop here at the top a little bit and look around because I adore this map. I think it's absolutely beautiful. First of all, who designed it? Who was responsible for the art of it? And how does this kind of thing get built or conceptualized?
Sure. Again, very much a team effort. We had this sort of idea from the leads, if I remember correctly, that we thought maybe some kind of a floating city would be a cool environment. And then we have a concept artist named Hector Ortiz, and he did some concept drawings of it. And from there, so that's like one side of it. He sort of did some like atmospheric pieces, some conceptual architectural types of pieces, so we could get some ideas of what we were going to be doing. Then from the other side, I took it from a gameplay point of view and kind of divided it up into spaces. One thing that is to like, a lot of it was like blocking off areas. So from the design standpoint, what I wanted is in this act to have a very peaceful sort of open world feel, so that you're not sort of directed like you have to go follow this particular path. You can just kind of go, enjoy the environment, talk to the people, complete some tasks. But it's very. I wanted it to have this very sort of peaceful, almost contemplative feeling, but also with this sense of like impending, the calm before the storm kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So what I wanted was, I had like the concept that I had was I wanted a sort of like a landing area. My thought was, okay, if you've got people constantly using this gateway technology coming in and out, you don't want to like open two gateways on the same spot or like, so they'd have like a transit hub, right? And then I figured they would have sort of, a government area that not everybody would have access to.
Yeah.
So I liked having like the bridge in between because it was a really good, locked door essentially that could keep them out of that area.
Oh yeah.
And then I wanted to have kind of a pastoral feel. I wanted it to be I wanted the environment to really reflect the attitudes of these ancient Iconians and to differentiate them and contrast them to the Iconians in our present, who are very ruthless and bloodthirsty and warlike. And in the past, they're just these sort of scientists and artists, and so I wanted a very sort of aesthetic world. So basically, I kind of broke it up into play regions, like a couple of different regions, like more of like a residential area, more of like a park area, more of like a plaza area, and so they kind of took those things that I had blocked out and my recommendations, and then from there built them out appropriately.
Greetings, travelers.
Oh, cool.
And then did an amazing job. And a lot of people worked on this. Nate Herzog was the environment artist for most of it, but Scott Boyd also helped. Nick Duguid helped. So this was really, more than our other episodes, a real team effort.
Well, I can tell that this map in particular is kind of a showstopper, which is fitting, I think, for the finale and everything.
Yeah, and we're really pretty smart generally about how we invest our time. I mean, I think making this whole beautiful environment that we're probably only going to be able to use once was expensive.
Yeah.
But because this was such an important episode, and such a set piece, we felt like it was worth just really spending the time and making something just jaw-droppingly beautiful.
Yeah.
And it also exceeded my expectations of what it was going to end up looking like. It's just really, they knocked it out of the park as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that does kind of lead into another question, which is, are we going to get some kind of playable Iconian area, in the near future that leads on from this, or is this really a one-off thing at the moment?
What do you mean, like a
I don't know.
Playable Iconian hub or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but some place that we can go, like you can kind of go and hang out on New Romulus or Nimbus or places like that.
Huh. As far as I know, we don't have any plans like that right now. But if we're always open to ideas. My understanding though was this was supposed to kind of tie up the war, tie up the last 5 years, and kind of put that stamp of closure on them. I mean, we've had them be the shadow masters behind the scenes for so long, and we wanted to kind of to tie up that piece so that we could do some new things.
Deaths that we will avenge here.
So I probably shouldn't have fast-forwarded through that little piece of dialogue. This is where we sort of start to get the feel that Sela is going, right, don't forget we have to kill them all, and Cogran is kind of going, well, do we have to?
Yeah, and that was a really tricky thing to do. The concept we had, and it was that they would be like the angel and the devil on your shoulders.
Yeah.
The Cogran would be kind of like giving the like, well, I'm not so sure that this is the right thing to do, and that Sela would be, more like, we gotta kill them all. And then the idea was kind of to slowly shift their positions a little bit, so that if your middle position also kind of moves a little bit, so that it doesn't feel quite so jarring that suddenly, that if you're a Starfleet that you're trying to like wipe out the civilization,
Yeah.
So it was tricky, and also, I mean, there's lots of things that we're trying to tell. I mean, one thing that I was trying to bring forward was this very interesting relationship between the Iconians and the Heralds. That they're created beings, but that there's this emotional attachment and this sense of devotion and reciprocal needs, right? That there's sort of a symbiotic relationship as opposed to what we're used to seeing, with pets or something like that, which is a very subservient relationship.
Yeah.
And then also just this people, before this catastrophe happened, all this time ago, and to contrast that, and the environment tells that too. The costumes tell that. I mean, it's a sort of thematically, it's carried through a lot of different departments.
Yeah, and in fact,
transformation.
I meant to ask about that actually. Obviously, we have had references to the Iconians in the Trek TV shows, sort of over the years. When you were sort of developing Iconia and the Iconians themselves, etc., did you have a lot of back material to work on, or was it a lot of you guys at Cryptic developing what the Iconians were?
It was a lot of us developing them. I mean, in the show, basically I don't think you ever see them. You see their technology, their gateway technology a couple of times, but you don't, I mean, what they even looked like, we didn't know. Certainly, we made them. We do this a lot, and it's one of my favorite things about our game, is that we'll take the opportunities to tell the stories around what you see in the show, to tie up loose ends, to explain things. And so we kind of seized on the Iconians as our sort of I call it like the puppet masters, the shadow masters, from behind the scenes, controlling things, and then so that influenced their development because if they are why do they lurk from the shadows? Oh, because there's not that many of them, because they're immortal. But mostly to answer your question, it was mostly us, inventing this backstory and this history
and
for
making
them
it fit.
and making it fit. Yeah.
Is that something then you need to take back to CBS to get approval for, or do they kind of give you a certain amount of free reign when it comes to new stories?
We have a really amazing relationship with CBS. I think they give us a lot of trust, which we're really lucky. Ultimately, of course, is they have the say over what we do, but they are more concerned because we're in this case we're far in the future, and this is a race that not that much would happened with in the show. We had a little more. We had some leeway. When there's a canon character or something like that, then they're a little bit, or like ships and that kind of stuff. They're a little more involved because that's the IP and so forth, and they want to make sure that we're representing everything in a way that's consistent with their strategies and so forth. But with something like this, where it was like, you don't even see an Iconian there a couple of times. When we've kind of taken them and owned them, they're a lot more. They're really very flexible with us. Very great partners.
Not so fast. We've only heard one side of the story. I'd like to know what some of the other visitors here think about the oh-so-noble Iconians.
Can I ask about, because I've just kind of zipped through, the piece where you have to access the console, and there's a couple of little games, basically. How did you come up with what to put in there? I mean, it was just a bit of fun, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and that was actually really hard. I mean, because what we normally do is we kind of do these techno-babbly things.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's very Trek, and so what I was trying to do was to kind of, I know it's a little weird, but to kind of mimic what it would feel like for, somebody from 2410 trying to just, figure this stuff out. And the other piece is I really wanted to tie it into the Iconians' purview. They have this genetic engineering thing, and they have this gateway technology thing, and the idea is that there's these races that the premise that I was given was that there's these races that are trying to get this technology, and the Iconians won't share it, and so these species band together and attack them, and that's why they're destroyed. And so I was really trying to draw a parallel between the Prime Directive and the Iconians' policy, so that you can kind of you can kind of Federation players at least could see themselves in their own, like look at themselves through that lens. And then I wanted to tie in, like I said, genetic engineering and this gateway technology. So I tried to find problems that were analogous and thematically similar. And so that's why I came up with this sort of allele thing and the exotic sphere thing. The coolest thing, though, was that, and I think somebody just mentioned this in the chat here, but someone that was like actually a mathematician commented on the Reddit thread that I didn't get it just quite exactly right. There was a couple,
I did see that.
couple minor nuances on it, which I thought was amazing. I mean, that person. Just the fact that somebody would care that much to really,
to check into it and figure out the right answer.
It's a bit of a pitfall using actual math and science instead of just technobabble. Is that somebody could actually fact check you and be like, well, you got it almost exactly right. But it was gratifying. I mean, I definitely took it as because the person was a mathematician also, and so even though it wasn't quite totally accurate, was tickled to see a question like that in the game, as opposed to, you know, I don't know, an isolinear chip puzzle or something like that. You know?
Tell your ships to drop into orbit.
But it was like, you know, it was all trying to tell this really big story about this people, you know, and to cite it in a world. So it's not just sort of Iconia by itself, but there's this, you know, there's other players around too, you know, and so you see that with some of the conversations that happen. You kind of get to I think there's when you overhear them talking and so forth, and it kind of fills out a larger picture of what's going on, I think.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but I require assistance. We have lost contact with several of our colleagues.
Alright, let's help this engineer out. Winters, where are you going?
I'm just looking
I
around.
can see him running off way in the distance. I'm over here doing all the work, right?
I mean, that's one of the things I love. It's like that people want to wander around and look.
Yeah.
You know, they want to spend more time on this map. That's just
It is such a great map, though.
Oh yeah.
I do not know.
We already know the evacuation did not save them.
But the gateway on New Romulus remained active for a time.
Then we must cut off that path, now, before anyone escapes.
Right. I think this is where it all kicks off.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk to Lamarin. Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren from the bloopers of the day. Couldn't say it. Thanks for bringing that up again. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was so funny. Right.
Right, one last chance to look at the ethereal goodness.
Oh, sorry. I've started the cutscene. I'm taking mental notes on all their outfits so I can go and recreate them at the tailor later.
Which I did and then totally disregarded it for a lovely back in pink ensemble. I love like the wrist gauntlets.
I like the floaty shoulder orbs.
Mm.
They're my favorite.
I started calling them like the stress balls.
Yeah.
We must decide how to proceed. I have spoken. You have walked.
We wouldn't go into the other names for that for the costume because that started a whole hashtag on Twitter.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
For my part, I find no honor.
It doesn't matter what these people are now. We know what they will become, what they will do. The Iconians will destroy my homeworld. They will bomb the archive in the latest system and exterminate the preserver from here. They will disable all of the gateways to destroy Kess's. They will attack our homeworld, kill those we love, and threaten our very existence. Honorable thing.
It's also tricky to tie up so many things. You know, we wanted to make sure Jaddua was in there, and you know, we even, well, I won't get ahead of us too much, but we tried in the destruction of Romulus. I mean, there's just so many pieces that all come together in this tapestry.
Yeah. Well, you know, the pieces of this story have been going on for several years in Star Trek Online, so it's not surprising that there would be a lot of content to cover in this finale.
And is that particularly difficult to track and see, right, in this mission we want to kind of tie off that little piece?
Yeah, it's both. It's like there's certain things that we need to tie up and have happen, and then there's just opportunities, you know? There's just chances for us to tell more of the story and to tie more things in, which we love. Which we love to do, and I especially love to do. I was fortunate enough to be the one to do a lot of our arc revamps. So that was really neat to kind of go back and like, for example, doing the Romulan revamp, I was able to tie in stuff from the actual Romulan faction experience.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that kind of stuff a lot. You know, we tie stuff back in, make things kind of fit together as much as we can with retconning as little as possible.
Yeah.
the magnetic interlocks holding the core. I need you at the other console. More invaders. They must not take the world heart. We need to erase the mainframe memory banks. I will require your assistance.
Where are we? Ah. Sorry, I got a little bit turned around then.
This room is symmetrical, so it is, you
Yeah.
can get turned around.
More aliens are coming.
I did think it was interesting in this piece how you are in combat, but it's almost a vehicle for giving the player sort of an emotional development, because somehow in fighting all of these people off, you start to kind of emotionally align yourselves with the Iconians.
Wow, thanks for noticing that. I mean, that's a really subtle nuance, but it's true, and it's one of the ways that we sort of trickily get you to feel invested in the Iconians and wanting to help them, and it's also part of that the storytelling thing of sort of you're helping them. And we don't say whether you're helping them because you are ultimately planning to betray them and earning their trust, or are you helping them because you're a good person and you want to help them. We kind of, although we give the player the chance to make that choice, we don't make it for them until the end. When we're like, okay, if you really want to kill them all, sorry, we're not going to let you do this other thing instead.
But it's true that could be that sort of emotional piece of the battle could be interpreted in a couple of different ways, depending on whether you sort of ally yourself with Seela's way of thinking or Cogran's.
I liked it wasn't the traditional Klingon, let's kill everything and then see what happens. You know, he was sort of the moral voice through it all.
Yeah, that was another twist that I really enjoyed a lot, because it's not what you expect, right? You expect the Klingon to be the bloodthirsty, let's kill them all, and for him to be the conscience, I thought was really interesting and powerful. Because it's like if even the Klingon is saying we shouldn't do this,
Yeah, something's going down.
It's really got to be pretty bad.
But it does work within the context because it's all talking about honor, and he's kind of right.
Right, totally, yeah.
Because they're defenseless for the most part.
They're defenseless, and one-on-one, warrior to warrior is one thing, but, to a Klingon, defenseless milk drinkers are not, a glorious battle.
Yeah.
I actually love writing for the Klingons. I love it so much. I like doing, I did a Tales of the War recently that was about a doctor on board a Klingon vessel. I really had a lot of fun with that one.
We have to go this way, don't we? Off to the left.
Yes, I force you on the way back, because I want you to actually have to... It's a more linear path on the way back.
Yeah.
I've destroyed the bridges and force you to go through, so you get to fight your way all the way through. And that was another thing, I also really enjoy the dramatic difference. I mean, you have this idyllic planet, and then it's bombarded, and it's such a dramatic change.
Yeah.
And again, it contributes to what you're saying before of this sort of of sympathizing with them, because you see this people just maybe you agree with their beliefs, maybe you don't, but they're just going about their lives.
Yeah.
And then you see their beautiful planet just torn to shreds, and you can't help but feel for them, even though they're going to do these horrible things. and the future, and that is really the moral question that we're getting at. And that was one of the really fun things about writing for it, is it felt like a very sort of, TOS or even TNG, these sort of moral questions about what is right, were very alive and present. So that made a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah.
Now I see your plan. We've won their confidence, gathered them together. Strike now, and we can eliminate them all.
Oh dear, this is the last great. You have to decide. Well, you don't really decide, but you do have to decide what you're going to say. I spent a lot of time thinking about. This is where Sela says, "Strike now and eliminate them all." And you have to decide. I will not kill defenseless innocents, or I've decided to spare them, or how you're going to respond to her.
Yeah, for me, this is the pivotal moment of the mission, and they kind of bury it a little bit. But for me, this is that moment where we let the player say, "This is what's this is what's happening."
Yeah.
But you get to decide, what your character's reasoning for it is, which I think takes some of the sting out of the railroading.
Yeah.
And I hope and I really appreciate that you thought about it, because I really, I was hoping that people would kind of, think about it. What would your character do? Like, Starfleet, like, we're trying to do the good thing, or I'm Klingons, we want to do the honorable thing,
Well,
I spent ages thinking about it. I mean,
Yeah.
everything. I was looking for subtle little things. Like, I thought with the Klingon, there's something wrong there with him. Even I was like, he's saying we shouldn't attack. I'm like, is there something else there, or is this normal? Or I was just thinking. I was overthinking it.
That's interesting. Like with mind control, I didn't even consider that angle, but that would certainly be Trek too.
Yeah.
That Cogran was under some kind of influence. The others, that was another piece. We'd been hinting at this for a while, right? And we wanted to really land that moment of, oh. It was really fun too to see all the speculation on the forums and chat and stuff about who the others are, because we knew,
Mm-hmm.
Shoot him. Where? Oh, here we go. Sorry, I keep getting interrupted. I was on fire there for a minute. I had to sort myself out.
Oh yeah, you keep entering combat when you're on fire.
Yeah.
I so had to resist the urge to sing right there.
We're losing ground.
We can't hold them off.
Oh, here it comes. Oh.
That's it. Send them through.
No, this isn't our mission. You took everything from me!
The world heart.
There's no time. The gateway is closing.
Only 12 of us are left. That crystal contains our civilization.
Sela, stop! We are better than this. We are better than...
I will remember this, Romulan. I will extinguish your people in payment for your treachery.
This has all played out this way before. I am the cause for Hobus.
This scene still brings a little bit of a tear to my eye.
Yeah.
No matter how many times I see it, it always just kind of gets me.
Now, here's a question that I've seen asked a few times, and I'm not sure if it's something that we missed in dialogue earlier, or not. But how do the Iconians know that she's a Romulan? 'Cause
Yeah, there was a line before that was for New Romulus
Right.
that was cut. But my thinking is, in the context of the game and the world of the game, there's probably Cogran, first of all, has been there for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
There, and the gameplay itself, I feel like, is somewhat like a placeholder for other things that might be happening. Like Sela might have had other conversations that you weren't privy to or whatever while you're there. It's how I kind of would explain it.
Yeah, I don't think it's not a deal breaker that ruins the whole thing for me or anything. But
I have heard that speculation.
And I was genuinely curious because I have a tendency, because I'm so excited to get into the episode, that I don't pay attention to absolutely every word that was said at the beginning, and then I get to the end and go, oh my god, I have to replay it again. And I wasn't sure if it was something that we just missed or whether that was a small omission.
Yeah, it was like there was a war cry, earlier that like for Romulus, you know, that didn't make sense when we changed it, and then now when we changed it, we didn't like, oh, now how would they even know?
Yeah.
So. Or maybe Iconians are just really smart. I don't know.
Who's beaming in security escorts? We've got like.
That is probably not something you should be able to do.
Yeah.
Bring them. Well, I guess they could be on your ship.
I suppose, yeah. Oh no, they're gone now.
Your ship did come with you, so it would be worse if your ship wasn't.
I know what you're saying, but I did what I had to do for my people. I should have acted sooner. If I had, perhaps Romulus would have been restored.
I like how she kind of just goes, "Oh, I know what you're gonna say."
It's like
trying to brush it off.
The Iconians have fled to Jaddua 3, and the Gateway's console has been destroyed.
Okay, let's go back and sort all this mess out.
Go back to the present. Back to the future.
Back to the future.
We're initiating a tachyon burst to reopen the portal that brought
The
us
question
here.
is, do they have hoverboards in the
self-tang laces.
25th century or whatever?
Well, have you been to Ryza? Clearly.
Of course we do, yeah. What am I talking about? I've spent the last week doing working on some screenshots that our listeners sent in on Ryza, and half of them are on hoverboards, so I don't know why I forgot that.
It's destabilizing. Hurry!
Self-tying sneakers, I think, still elude us, though.
Oh no, we as a species, we've evolved beyond sneakers. Soft boots for everyone.
Stand down. I repeat, stand down. You have the world heart and the means to end this. Signal the Iconians.
So this was a tricky thing too. Originally, what we had wanted was to kind of show more of the destruction, like after you went through the portal,
right?
Of like, but it was hard to show because it's like it gets really gamey, like who is watching this? You've gone back in the past, so, and we're seeing stuff that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So we tried to tell that story kind of in a different way. That same sense.
Ooh, I'm getting that music. I think we won.
That is not possible. But yet, I see the world heart in your hands. It is time to end this. Your leaders, our unity. Now.
I think it was an interesting choice, and you'll have to tell me whether this was, production driven or actually sort of story creative driven. That when we come back from the portal, we don't have to do any more battling before we can get them to listen to us. It's just as soon as we say we've got the world heart, they're like, yeah, okay, cool. We'll just end the war now. I personally, I liked that because I think it kind of talks to what the Iconians are really like, and it reinforces that thing that they're not all that bad. But I don't know. Tell me from the developer side. Was that just because you didn't have time to put another space battle in there, or was it deliberate?
It was deliberate. Another space battle is easy. The idea was more that this sets things to right, that and to have another combat here, A, detracts from that, and B, pacing wise, I mean, like I said, the personal crisis for me was the high point, but of the story itself, it's that moment with Sela, right?
Yeah.
And so having too much more episode after that would make it feel kind of drug out. So the
like
idea
the end of Lord of the Rings.
Right, yes. Or The Hobbit.
Yeah.
It's like, why is there this extra battle in here that wasn't in the book?
The second and third episodes of The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Sorry to any Hobbit fans out there.
I mean, I love The Hobbit, and that's why it bothered me that it was 8 hours long.
Yeah.
But amazing nonetheless. But just sort of, if you have another combat in there, it takes the focus away from the resolution that this act of compassion, kind of the theme and the message of this is this act of compassion ended the war that was threatening the galaxy, and also there was still kind of a piece of with time travel is a super tricky thing. You could probably talk about that for a whole hour.
Yeah.
And making it work as a plot device. Yeah. And so there's a certain element of avoiding paradox by returning to like the exact moment where you left.
Yeah.
And so to make that work, also was sort of, we had this idea of maybe showing more and then having you come back just before so that none of that happened, but that's just very difficult to tell in a game in an already complicated story with time travel. So to make it read the best was the third reason why we chose to do it that way. And I agree. I like it. I like that the end is not combat-y, because it feels very, especially for Federation players, I think it feels like a much more Federation ending.
Yeah.
Than just shoot pew pew some more.
Can I just point out that the two other members of my team are currently standing on the little balls at the back of the ship, which I think which I hadn't noticed before, but that is a really cool little asset that you get close to them and they levitate. Incredibly cool and unnecessary.
I do kind of want a line from Lemarin like, "Stay off of my floating balls."
that was in the outtakes. Wait,
Could you
do they
please
all
not wander around my ship?
Yeah. I could. I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep this PG-13. But
I know. So was I.
There's a new hashtag anyway.
Yeah.
You'll have to tell me after the podcast.
Yeah. After we go off air. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Okay. Well, let's finish this up then.
What you say is true.
This cutscene really gets me too.
Yeah.
It's just. I love the Iconians too when they talk that way. With all the voice effects and stuff. It's very cool.
I have to say, when we started seeing the Iconians, I was a bit like, really? Because it was all a bit, all a bit too fantasy for what I thought was Star Trek is. But I think having actually seen now where they've come from and how they got to be kind of what they look like now, I kind of get it. Maybe that's because I've got used to it, but I don't know. I like them.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, even in the show, it's kind of funny how there's this, they straddle this line sometimes. Like, I think of Chakotay's, I forget what it's called, but the spirit box that he uses to like commune, instead of taking whatever, right? They kind of straddle that line of mysticism sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a thing. Like with these, they call them the demons of air and darkness, right?
Yeah.
So you want to have them be these very ethereal things, but yet Star Trek is science fiction, and things have a scientific basis. So, so that was tricky, and and it was a nice opportunity to get to show that these, these crazy dark energy beings were once flesh and blood, if you will, and were transformed or transformed themselves, and that their physical transformation reflects their emotional and their moral transformation over the years.
No, you might not know the answer to this question, but did you know what they were going to look like as sort of flesh and blood when we first saw them in their sort of ethereal, light being type things? Was when they did the concept art, or whoever did the concept art for the Iconians, did they have that progression in mind, or was that sort of the flesh and blood was later?
Flesh and blood was later. Yeah, we worked backwards.
Yeah.
Like, we know what these people are now.
Yeah.
What made them, and what were they like before this happened, and that's how we came up with the ancient Iconian.
Yeah.
And I love the change in the bridge that's happened after they've put in the world heart. Has anyone else noticed the colours change?
Somebody
Deep
mentioned
orange.
it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Somebody mentioned it in the chat. Too. Yes. There was a suggestion too at one point that we actually do something similar with the Iconians, that they also take on a more, sort of lighter, more like their old form. But I actually really strongly oppose that, because I felt like, that to do that is to erase, in some ways, the legacy of what happened, and I feel like they wouldn't do that. That it's like, this is what's happened. We have a new start, but that's like, we're not going to deny who we are or where we came from. Yeah. We're just always going to remember this tragedy.
Well, and the ship makes sense because, for instance, if we were in a Federation starship, you would be at red alert and you'd have the dim lights and the red lights going on, and likewise for them, they would have something analogous. So to lighten it up after we've said, okay, the war's over, that makes sense. It might not make as much sense with the characters themselves.
Right. Yeah, and plus, we've already sort of talked about, their ship changing is sort of easier than them changing. Although in Broken Circle we did kind of point out that connection between the ships and the Iconians, their power sources. So we could have maybe spun something out of that, but I actually think it's perfect how it is. Kind of also like the contrast of these very dark beings in this sort of lighter environment too.
I really want to be able to zoom out. What I need to do, right, is do this bit of it in demo record and then zoom around and go and have a look at the outside of this ship, because that would be very cool. Note that one for later.
Right. Many opportunities for excellent fan-made trailers, I think. Which we love, by the way, when we see them.
There's some excellent work going on in various places.
Yes, some really good work. And it's so touching as a developer to have people, that excited about what you're doing, so that they do their own videos and stuff. That's just awesome.
Take the time to use your work to produce something different.
Yeah, so that it inspires somebody else. Like that's a creative person. That's very gratifying.
Pain called out for blood in ever greater measures. The events of that day set us on this path. I did, and it saved us. But we believed the other lost.
Oh, I love that sound effect, that poofing sound effect. Thank you. I always think this bit's funny because my character is wearing like a skin-tight cat suit, right? And her adjusting her, the Picard maneuver doesn't quite work.
Pulling down the empty air where her dress uniform would be.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. I always go in for battle gear. Right. So this is a really good opportunity to talk about one of the issues that a lot of people are discussing, which is Miss Sela over there. And she's kind of, you know, having a good old time hanging out at Starfleet Academy. Why is she not, like, been arrested and in a brig somewhere at this point?
There's a lot of work to be done now.
Let's see. Why is she not arrested in a brig? Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. First of all, you've just like had this super traumatic thing that you've come back from, and you've sort of been placed back on Earth space dock.
Yeah.
But I think the deeper question there is,
I thought this was it.
you know, I mean, for another piece, she has. You don't want to just like arrest Sela. She's still got pretty powerful military, you know, power behind her.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think what we're getting to is that clearly, I think it's no surprise that this is a turning point.
Yep.
For Sela's character, and I think her being on the Starfleet Academy is an opportunity to get some of that piece of that, like things. This has opened her mind in some ways. You know, she's seeing the consequences of her own actions.
Yeah.
She's seeing that maybe sort of military power over isn't always the best solution, and so that's sort of it. Sort of that and you know why she wasn't arrested. Also, she did just show up with the Dominion to, like, you know, save the day, and
True.
in that sense, the whole galaxy was united.
Yeah.
So that's another important piece that we wanted to show. Also, was that the only way that we were able to stand up to the Iconians was by the entire galaxy coming together. You know, even Sela, even the Dominion. So, you know, it would be kind of a, well, thanks for saving the day, but now we're putting you in jail, kind of a...
True.
That would be very nice.
Are we probably going to see more from Sela in the future?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to answer that. But I'll let you draw your own conclusions.
As Kate said last time, all will be revealed in the fullness of time.
All will be revealed in the fullness of time.
Okay. Excellent.
I don't know what to say. I thought I was protecting our future. But instead, all this... It happened because of a mistake I made hundreds of thousands of years ago. I've made a lot of difficult choices in my life. And I didn't always consider the consequences of my actions. Today has made me wonder if there's another way. If I can be better than I am.
Midnight complete!
Woohoo!
We won!
We won! The war's over!
Yay! And everything's gonna be happy and...
Everything's gonna be happy and joyful and light.
Yeah. We never have to battle anything. We can spend the rest of our lives doing Space Barbie and it will be fantastic.
Don't forget our, our paper shuffling minigames.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Oh, I still have quite a few pieces of lore to get at Starfleet Academy. Yes. Let me just... who's letting off fireworks? Is that you, Winters?
Nope, not me at all.
They're coming out of your ship. Don't lie.
Not me.
Right, I'm gonna hail Starfleet and get my goodies because I haven't actually played it yet this week. So.
Oh, nice. Good timing.
Yeah, it's perfect. So it's the Impulse engines this week. Awesome. Excellent. So Mark and Winters, have you guys got any last questions before we sign off?
I don't think so.
None that I think could actually be answered.
Oh yeah, I've got 1,000,001 questions and I just know what the answer will be.
Yeah.
No comment.
No comment. No comment.
Well, excellent. Well, in that case, we will sign off here shortly. I just wanted to say very quickly, thank you so much, Jaddua, for joining us. It's been a really interesting and sort of eye-opening sort of journey through Midnight. I've really enjoyed it. And it's just a reminder to anyone who's watching, you can follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/priority1 or follow us on Twitter at STO Priority 1. And again, this stream is going to be archived on our YouTube YouTube channel, and to find us, just go to youtube.com and search for Priority One Podcast. Also, just a little note, if you would like to see more content like this, then please do consider a financial contribution via our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/Priority One. Thank you all for tuning in, and we shall see you next time. Bye!
Bye-bye.
Bye.